Kia ora guys, welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max, I'm the host of this channel, and a big thank you to my patrons as per normal. For today's video we've got the Scotland's depth chart. I've counted every single minute played in every single jersey by every single player in the 2020s for Gregor Townsend's side. As you can see through this depth chart, I've got an example of the ideal chart. The first choice players are always going to be in red, the second in blue, third in green, and the fourth in yellow. In the ideal world, you've got four solid players all carrying a decent portion of the minutes, with the first choice guy getting about 40% of this 1,000-minute chart, the second guy getting about 30%, third choice getting about 20%, and the fourth choice player getting about a 10% share of this chart. So the fourth choice player is never going to go to a World Cup, but you do want to have decent injury cover for the two guys that you're bringing to the World Cup. Although all these minutes are very valuable to look at, if a player is ruled out of selection due to injury or becomes ineligible for the team due to retirement or leaving overseas, their share of the depth chart gets invalidated, so will turn to a grey colour. Now that I've explained what the depth chart works like, we're going to examine how this practice goes onto the actual Scotland team and how the coaches have managed the minutes played by every individual player. We'll start off with loose head prop. As we can see, Pierre Schoeman, Rory Sutherland, those two are two very good players, very world-class options, and as there's no really example of an out-and-out talent up-and-coming over at prop, they've gone for experienced players in the form of Jamie Batty, Ollie Keble and Alan Dell to round out the chart. Aside from the fact that there's a fifth choice player with Dell's minutes probably should have going to a spread out of these two, this is pretty much the perfect depth chart in the events that someone goes down. You're well prepared for an injury. Sutherland, a British and Irish Lion. Schoeman, absolutely amazing form right now. So in the ideal world, this is what your depth chart wants to look like. It's a very similar thing over here at hooker as well. George Turner, clearly the first choice. Fraser Brown, who can also cover flanker off the bench, clearly the second choice. Stuart McAnally, I'm expecting his share of the chart to be invalidated as he's had a real bad time struggling with injury. It's okay though, David Cherry, an experienced option, has got a few tests under his belt, and Ewan Ashman is the guy that they're going to look at as the future prospect, so I think that Ashman will probably be able to make his way past Cherry and get himself a few more minutes before the World Cup. And of course we can see Johnny Matthews played a few minutes against Chile, which was counted as a test by the Chilean coaches and the Chilean union, so I have counted that Scotland A game into the equation because Chile gave it test status. We can see though an example of a depth chart that's not too good over here. Xander Fagerson playing massive minutes, this guy, and Verpier now, he's going to be 37 at the World Cup, so Scotland are in a bit of a dire situation at tight head prop. As we can see, Simon Bergen, Javan Sebastian, Keble, Walker, they're all not really getting a crazy amount of minutes, and with the amount of penalties that Fagerson gives away, you are going to be in a pretty dodgy place as things stand. We've now jumped over to the locks, and as we can see, Richie Gray, despite being out for much of the Townsend era, is now starting to creep up in terms of minutes compared to the other players. Scott Cummings over here, it's been a wee while since he actually added any minutes to this chart, so I'm suspecting that though they are going to see a fair few more invalid minutes due to Cummings getting left out of the World Cup squad, it will be offset by the amount of test caps that Richie Gray has accrued overall throughout his career. Over to lock 5 as well. This is why I was expecting 4 to be a bit more of a mess, because these guys only seem to play lock 5, Grant Gilchrist and Johnny Gray, despite the fact that they appear to be the first choice locking combo in the Townsend era. As we can see, things are a bit more erratic over at number 4 with the likes of Hodgson, Glenn Young, Nick Haining of all players, and Sam Skinner of course getting some minutes, whereas over at number 5 there's far fewer going to those second and third choice players. So I do think that though this is a bit lopsided, this depth chart here, we've got the number 4 jersey offsetting the number 5 very much. We're now going to move over to blindside flanker though, and this is not ideal. This is appalling game management. Jamie Ritchie, we've got this guy playing massive minutes, but Rory Darge, who's second on the depth chart, he prefers to play at 7. We've then got Matt Fagerson and Nick Haining, who are both out and out number 8s. Sam Skinner, who is clearly a lock, Magnus Bradbury, who's a number 8. And this is basically just going completely lopsided around here. None of these players past Muncaster have got up to 80 minutes onto this depth chart, whereas Richie, he's all the way up into the near 60% point of this chart with no clear backup. I get that he's the captain, I get that Townsend needs him to play a fair few minutes, but when there's far fewer backup options, this does concern me quite a fair bit. It's not as bad over at open side flanker. We can see Hamish Watson with about 66% of the chart, 1,884 minutes, with Jamie Ritchie also backing up Watson as second place on the open side flanker depth chart. It's okay though, Luke Crosby, a very decent option. Jack Dempsey, he'll be getting a fair bit of game time off the bench. And obviously Rory Darge has established himself as a member in the squad, so I'm not as worried about Hamish Watson as this year they finally started just preparing for the eventual downfall of him that could happen, as he's barely ever been injured during the Townsend era. We're now going to get to number 8. Matt Fagerson, it's a similar thing. He's got 59.3% of the chart with 1,707 minutes. Magnus Bradbury has had a fair few over at number 8, as we can see, but Jack Dempsey could almost overtake him potentially by the World Cup. Dempsey's been getting a lot of minutes off the pine, and number 8 is the jersey where they seem to fancy him a little bit more. He's got more test caps than Bradbury, as he did once play for Australia, so I'm suspecting that's how things are going to be going. Nick Haining, he's got a few decent options to be the 4th choice as well, so this is balanced enough when you consider that guys like Ryan Wilson, Cornell Dupree, and others are no longer eligible for the team. Blade Thompson, for example, he's retired. We're now going to take a quick ad break and get back to things soon. During the 2023 Six Nations, I was incredibly concerned and worried. Why are they not starting Ali Price? What's going on? Well, now guys, I can see why that was going on. He has played the 3rd to most minutes of any player in the Townsend era, and so with 68% of this chart, they needed to get solid minutes to his backup options quickly. Ben White has turned up, he's answered the call, and he's now managed a total of 522 minutes of Test rugby. Most of them have come in very quick succession this year, whereas George Horn is obviously the 3rd choice option. Ben Valacott, Jamie Dobby, they've got a couple minutes here and there as well. But yes, Price really needed a proper backup option, and so bringing him off the bench to start White, I think, has been the best way to get around that. You don't lose the experience that you can't just grow on trees, but you also get a form guy in to get things going, and the experience can close the game out. Over at 10, things are very balanced as well. I was expecting Russell to go way over here. That was going to be the type of angle of this pie chart with Russell in there, but Blair Kinghorn has actually played more minutes than Adam Hastings, who has had a fair bit of injury troubles as of late. So Kinghorn is the 2nd choice, just 23 or so, 13 there, sorry, minutes more than Hastings. Duncan Weir's also had a few, Stuart Hoggs had a few, and to my surprise, Sione Tuipulotu actually ended up playing a few minutes of 10. We can also see the invalid minutes to guys like Jaco van der Walt, who played 2 test matches. And man, this is a very good looking chart, with the exception of a 4th choice player being absent, but with Russell at 46% of the minutes and a few invalids there, it kind of makes sense as to why it looks the way it does. This is quite good ahead of the World Cup. They know who the top 3 guys are. I think Adam Hastings there will be back ahead of Kinghorn beforehand as well. We now get to left wing though. Doesn't really matter too much who you pick on the wing. They are the least important players on the pitch in my opinion. But Duhan van der Merwe, he has actually played the most minutes in the Townsend era. Though it's very lopsided with Kinghorn and Steyn far behind him, I'm not too worried about it as wingers. It's just a position where you can pick a form guy and you'll be alright. Van der Merwe is not very injury prone, so I'm not too concerned about this lopsided looking depth chart over here. Over to 12 though. Sione Tuipulotu will almost definitely be able to overtake Sam Johnson by the World Cup as well. We do have decent minutes to James Lang and Cameron Redpath as well, who have both played some pretty decent matches throughout the Townsend era. Sam Johnson, though it's a bit nerve-wracking to see a guy that's been out for so long take such a decent share of the depth chart, it's okay because as we go over to the next chart, the centre chart, We can see that Hugh Jones, who's Tuipulotu's club level teammate, has been playing far more minutes than he previously was as well. So with Sione Tuipulotu getting into the first place at 12, it will be okay for Jones to lag behind Harris a little bit. I've said about Harris that he's not up to Test rugby at all recently. And Hugh Jones, man, the fact that he's got a club level teammate, it makes it okay. If you do want to lose this share of a chart, as Townsend seems set on doing, well then club level cohesion's the way to go, as World Cups are won by experience. Mark Bennett as well, he's played a fair few of the minutes on the 13 chart too, so that's really good. There is indeed a third choice player to call on, so I think they are safe despite Harris looking in a bit of a dire straits for form right now. We now go to the right wing. This is actually pretty well managed for a jersey that's not crazy important in the grand scheme of things. A clear first choice player, second choice player and third choice player. Though Maitland is highly unlikely to get picked for the team, it's great to see that he is available. He's an experienced player who's played a decent enough share of minutes, so if there is an injury at fullback, well then he can come along and do the job. Great to see Stain is the second choice for both 14 and 11 as well, with Darcy Graham of course coming in first place to no surprises. He is an absolute class operator, man. We now go over to fullback. Stuart Hogg. To finish off this video, I'm going to talk about why he's the most important player, but I do want to highlight the fact that there is at least depth. We see Ollie Smith, though he's very inexperienced, coming in at second place, so he knows his place in this team. The coaches consider him to be the second choice, and the minutes are now reflecting that position. Blair Kinghorn's played a few as well, as has Rory Hutchinson and Sean Maitland, but Stuart Hogg, man, he is irreplaceable. That's why I'm ending this video off with the fact that he is the most important player in this Scottish team. He's played a total of 2,123 minutes in the Gregor Townsend era since the 1st of January 2020. He also played a fair total in Townsend's previous era in the late 2010s. As we can see, Hogg played a few minutes at 10 and a few at 15, and he's played 31 of the total tests this decade to add to his total of 102, and that's including 2 tests for the British and Irish Lions. As we can see, he will also be going to his 3rd World Cup later this year, so though he has not played the most minutes of the team, he is a key decision maker for the team's spine in the fullback jersey, and the guys on the team spine are tending to play a bit more minutes than the other players in the team. So Hogg, with the fact that he's the most capped player on the team, he was captain for a while, and the fact that he's one of the team's key decision makers, well, it's pretty easy to say that, though it's a little bit of a cliche, Stuart Hogg is the most important player in the team. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. I'll see you later. Cheers from Max.